77s are decreed for your people in your holy city to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. In this study, we are going to look at the timeline of Daniel's 70 weeks, starting and endpoints, and the significance of this prophecy. It is believed by many that a gap was placed in between the 69th and 70th week, and that the 70th week is a 7-year period during the last days. We will elaborate more on that in a different segment, but concerning the natural sequence of time, the 70th week must follow immediately after the 69th, or it could simply not be called the 70th week if it were to occur thousands of years after. 1 week equals 7 days, or years, times 70 equals 490 years. Exiled in Babylon, God offers Israel a second chance to overcome rebellion against God and fulfill the terms of his covenant with Israel. From 457 BC, Artaxerxes decreed to rebuild Jerusalem. To AD 33, the 70th week and the time of Christ's death equals 490 years. In 4 BCE, Herod dies. Jesus is born beforehand, giving him the age of 33 to 34 in 30 AD. God created a new calendar for Israel at the time of the Exodus. We see this in Exodus 12 verse 2. This calendar is often called the Jubilee calendar, and it is based on God's weekly cycle. God established a cycle of 7 years so that each day of the week represented a year. Know and understand this: from the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the Anointed One, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. It will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, but in times of trouble. 7 sevens equals 49 years. 62 sevens equals 434 years. 1 7 is 7 years, for a total of 490 years. After 62 sevens, the Anointed One will be put to death and will have nothing. The people of the ruler who will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end will come like a flood. War will continue to the end, and desolations have been decreed. After 69 weeks, or 483 years, Jesus is crucified or cut off during and in the middle of the 70th week. The 70th week goes as follows. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7. In the middle of the 7, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering, and at the temple he will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end that is decreed is poured out on him. The point has been stressed in other studies, but for the sake of understanding this particular verse, it is of great importance to understand that in dealing with covenants, it is in fact the Lord who makes or confirms covenants in all of Scripture, not Lucifer, not the Antichrist at the time of the end. A covenant is a holy contract, so to speak, set up by God unto his people. More on this in another study. The Old Testament, with the exception of Daniel 12, more specifically, God's first plan, or covenant with the Jews, does not mention anything about a second coming. There would have been no need for a second coming had Israel obeyed and met the terms and conditions set before them in this plan. According to the first covenant, Jesus would have come to his chosen people and begun to establish his kingdom here on earth in AD 27. In anticipation of the fulfillment of this plan, God sent John the Baptist before Jesus to announce this marvelous truth. The history of mankind after the 70th week would have been entirely different if only Israel had accepted and welcomed their Messiah. It is interesting to note at that time that the Jews were anticipating an epic appearance of sorts, in the likes of how Christ will return the second time. However, he came first humbly as a lamb before he returns with ferocity as a lion. To recap the key points concerning the 70 weeks vision, 70 weeks were 490 years granted to ancient Israel. God promised Messiah would appear after 7 weeks and 62 weeks, for a total of 69 weeks, or 483 years. God divided up 69 weeks into 7 weeks and 62 weeks, so that Israel could determine which decree started the 70 weeks. Only one decree, and there were 4, would occur in the first year of a Jubilee cycle of 7 weeks, hence the division of 69 weeks. Jubilee cycles are synchronous with the year of the Exodus from Egypt. This means the first year of each cycle aligns with the year of the Exodus. Again, this all-important decree occurred in 457 BC. See Ezra 7 and 8. As promised, at the beginning of the 70th week, Jesus began his public ministry in the 484th year. This is AD 27. See Luke 3 for reference. As promised, Messiah dies in the middle of the 70th week. The death of Jesus ended the Edenic covenant, which required sacrifices and oblations to cease. Finally, the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed in AD 70 by the Romans under Titus, and Jerusalem would be endlessly ravaged by conflict and war until the end of days.